Alphamille Top of Mind podcast with Daniel Morozoff. And let me please quickly introduce him to you. Daniel Morozoff is a co-founder of VidroVR. Some people say VidroVR, but it's not correct. VidroVR. VidroVR is an innovative machine learning company with a mission to help companies create actionable insight and awareness through multimedia understanding. And today it's tackling some of the world's most important problems, like disinformation or information gathering, I would say. So analyzing big scale videos and investment opportunities and really making sense of unstructured data, be it for banks, private equity firms, hedge funds, or any other entity that cares about working efficiently and effectively. And Daniel went to UCLA for undergraduate to study physics, where he received his degree in neuroscience. And then he moved to New York and pursued his PhD in Columbia University. He had a project in the university that he worked on, which really became the foundation for VidroVR. Daniel, welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for joining Alphamille podcast today. We're excited to speak with you. And who can better present himself than you? Would you please talk to me and tell everybody about your own story and your beginning in this exciting space of AI?
So first off, it's great to be here, Vita. Thank you for hosting, and thank you for kind of reaching out and getting us involved in this. I'm excited to be here, and again, big thanks. To answer your question, how did I personally get involved in building kind of machine learning and computer vision or broadly AI tools? Is we had a collaboration project. So when I was doing my PhD at Columbia, I worked on, as you said, modeling that kind of overlapped neuroscience and computer science. And so I worked in both departments. And in the computer science department, our project basically gave way to the development of the foundational technologies that would, turn into or morph into the company as it is today. And the problems that we were dealing with then are actually very similar to the problems that a lot of people are dealing with now, and kind of give credence and give validity to our business. Effectively, those problems are problems having to do with unstructured data and trying to figure out ways to create relationships or create structure around that unstructured data to drive business or operational value from that data. And effectively, that is what VidroVR is. It's a set of tools or a toolkit of machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms that take unstructured data, like audio, video, and image, and then basically enable users such as organizations and businesses, our primary customers or businesses, to utilize those unstructured data assets to boost the performances of their businesses. And because we're a horizontal technology, we basically serve a number of different user types. So we have people who work in the media sector, we have people who work in government, we have people who work in financial services, and all of them are using our tool sets to serve their specific business needs, but all of them share the same problem of unstructured data.
So VidroVR essentially is able to track information across the web, is it correct? And understand all kinds of video, audio outputs, and text, of course, right?
So yeah, so we primarily focus on, again, the unstructured part of data. So we've built an engine and a platform that basically takes any type of input feed. So be that a video on like broadcast or social media, audio on a radio station, or again hosted on like a podcast like we are having here right now, or imagery that's basically sitting in an S3 bucket or a database or whatnot. And we take that information and we automatically process it. We use whatever machine learning models are required to process that data type. And then we extract the meaningful information from that for the business. We structure that data, and then from there, we basically create the next step, which are kind of secondary systems. So workflow engines we have a no-code workflow engine called Actions that allows you to take all that information that we've structured and automate against it. So like, let's say you do some task every day with an unstructured data source, right? Like, let me give you an example. I want to understand market movements based on how a certain consumer good is being talked about or sold or discussed on social media. How can I actually, as a financial services company, how can I tie those things together? How do I process that information? So our system is able to go out, collect that information, process it, and then tie it back and provide you the signal to actually answer that question, right? Like answer the question of like, how is Peloton being discussed? What products are those, or what problems are those products having? And then tie that back to a, in this case, an equity stock or whatever it is.
It appears to have a really wide application. You mentioned media companies being able to gather information, also have a very effective overview of video outputs and not spend as much time. From what I understand, they even able to cut the analytics time or viewing time, right?
Oh, so it's not so much viewing time, right? So in media companies and actually across the board, the value add that we bring
Mhm.
is we're basically a technology enabler, right? So we enable human beings to perform better, to be more efficient at the tasks that they do. And we are able to do that using artificial intelligence technology. So effectively, AI in our case is basically the means to an end, right? We're an AI company because we don't know any other way to do this any better. And so we build AI models to solve these problems. And in the context of media companies, we effectively are able to significantly improve their day-to-day operations in terms of like increases of 400 to 500% in performance against normalization of like a human being. So let me give you an example. Like, let's say I'm able to do something in 5 hours. Using our AI tools, we can get you down to 1 hour. And so when we do these comparisons, this is how we sell our customers. We basically present them like, hey, this is what you're doing today. Now do it with our system. And they see this huge shrink in the amount of time or effort that's required. And so they've incorporated AI technology and become more efficient in the process in doing it. And in media companies, that relates back to, say, publishing content or creating residual content or better organizing various types of multimedia content within their organizations, which is their core product that they sell, right? That content is what media companies produce and sell to advertisers and consumers.
Oh, this is massive. It seems to be providing an incredible competitive advantage to the companies that use your tool. Why don't we talk about financial markets and financial companies? Because that's our core interest, really. But could you please mention what use cases that you had already and successes potentially in the financial markets arena?
Right. So, I mean, in financial markets, again, look to any part of an organization. So, I think it depends how you, financial markets is a huge kind of industry and sector, right? So, there's all sorts of things where unstructured data is utilized across the board, right? So, you can look at scenarios where you have everything ranging from retail banking scenarios all the way to investment firms, hedge funds, private equity shops, and each one of those has very different applications for unstructured data. For example, in private equity, right, the idea is like, how do I basically better compete with my portfolio or my portcos against other companies in the space, right? So in that context, it's very similar to any business that operates in that industry, and they can utilize our tools to understand kind of the competitive landscape, to understand how their products are better served or engaged with, or how their competitors' products are being better served or engaged with, and effectively adapt accordingly, effectively lowering their costs, improving their efficiency as a business, and then effectively performing their fiduciary duty as a private equity firm to sell the businesses that they invest in at a better valuation and make money that way. And that's very similar to hedge funds that are basically doing trading strategies against whatever they're trading, right? In terms of like retail banks, again, if you have a customer focused sectors, we've seen everything from, hey, I have a lot of unstructured audio data of like customer service logs of people just calling in, asking, all the way to folks trying to prevent skimming operations on ATMs, to creating multi-factor authentications for bank account logins, right? So like I want to create a way for my customers to feel more secure and provide another layer of security by creating kind of a new multi-factor authentication regime using unstructured data assets such as audio or video data, right? And so effectively that allows you to say like, I want to opt in every time I go to an ATM. Not only does it allow me to type in my PIN, I also wanted to recognize my voice or to recognize my face or my family's face or whatever, right? Like you can create those rules, but in order to do that in a banking scenario, the bank needs to have ML or AI systems in place to deliver that capability.
What would be a very narrow application for those companies that are interested to track the investments?
Again, it really depends what you're looking at, right? So like a good example is, let's say you're trying to do hyper localized investment in like a region. Let's say you're interested in mineral resources or something like that in the middle of South America or in Africa or in the South Pacific, whichever, right? Um, Fundamentally, the problem that you have as an investor or someone who might become an investor is uh, information acquisition and then information processing. And in today's world, that problem is exponentially more difficult than it used to be, right? And so historically, the way people have solved this or approached this is you either send people out into the field to collect information for you on your behalf, or you buy information from data providers or research firms, right? Folks like Bridgewater, and like you can have a large number of them, right? The fundamental problem is that those firms are still doing the same basic task. They're going out, they're trying to collect data, and they're trying to buy it, and then they're trying to effectively structure it for you so it's digestible for you to make some kind of investment decision. What we enable you to do is we enable you to shortcut that entire process by basically saying, hey, I want to be able to go in anywhere in the world where there's data available to ingest. I
Mhm.
want to take that data. I want to structure that data without actually knowing what the structure is beforehand. And then I want to be able to extract signal that's relevant to my investment decision and then use that signal to inform whether or not I want to invest or not, right? So an example being, let's say I'm trying to invest in minerals somewhere.
Mhm.
I can tap into, you know, radio stations, local radio stations, broadcast stations, any social media in the area, create a holistic map of what people are saying what vis-a-vis mineral resources in kind of that region, and understand what is the outlook based on kind of the hyper localized information that I'm receiving from the ground around how mineral resources are being applied. Now, if you think about that, you're like, wait, but if I go somewhere in the world, they're speaking a different language.
Mhm.
Yes. And our system automatically handles that for you. So you plug us in, we take that data in, we transcribe it, we translate it, we then extract meaningful information like instances, visual instances of, say, mining operations being discussed. We then identify those segments of either video, audio, or image, unify that in a holistic kind of structure, which is in our case a graph, and then we allow you to receive a report against it. So you say, every time someone talks about minerals, are they positive or negative? What is it exactly that they're talking about when they're talking about minerals? Oh, interesting. There's a Chinese company that's investing in mineral extraction in this region.
Mhm.
Oh, there's a US company that's involved. And so those types of things become very important for you to make your business decision, because depending on what type of investor you are, where you're coming from, and what your portfolio looks like already, all of these details matter. And the more of these details you can receive that are basically focused in on your specific decision-making process, the better your process becomes. And so we can shortcut that for you and kind of give you that information and that data and effectively make your investment decisions better.
Understood. So that's great. What if I wanted to track a specific person mentioning lithium or gas, any other person of interest for my business?
The way we operate is on this notion of feeds. So you put us in, you plug our system into whatever data feed you want. That could be Elon Musk's Twitter account, right? Or it could be a lithium refinery or a lithium ore company somewhere in South America. It could be a lithium battery producer somewhere in China. It could be Tesla in the United States, right? And then basically what you can do is you can create a way to monitor the entire supply chain and receive signal from every part of the supply chain. And so if you're interested in trading Tesla and you're following kind of their earnings calls and quarterly reports, you'll know that they're trying to verticalize that supply chain. And to be able to understand the impact of, say, the global pandemic on that supply chain before it actually gets reported is a huge win for you as an investor investing Tesla or in Tesla or trading Tesla stock.
For sure, it's time. Time is of the essence. Plus, how many languages can you do it in?
So today we support about 100 languages on transcription and about 80 languages on OCR, which is basically optical character recognition. So we read the text on screen. But a lot of those 80 languages are actually overlapping languages. In other words, their alphabets are the same. So like English and Spanish have a lot of similar letters, except for a few.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need to create a new specific language. And so basically we have a smaller set. So that's basically what we're doing right now.
Gotcha. Sometimes I understand you can even be faster than media companies. You don't have to wait for their reports because whoever is using your tool will be able to get essentially information firsthand.
Right. If they plug into the right feed, right? So if they're monitoring the person, let's say, like case in point, you're monitoring someone on the ground and they're recording something and they're posting it to social media, or they're streaming directly to your service running our platform, then yes.
Yeah. So it has to be a public, or it has to be a channel that you can tap into essentially.
Well, yeah, exactly. It has to be accessible.
Yeah. Well, now, in terms of your clients, what is the size of your clientele? Because, and I guess it directly leads into the question, how expensive is the tool?
I mean, so our clients range in scale, right? We actually have footprints of like small businesses all the way to kind of federal government customers, right? And so we have various deployment types and variants that serve different sectors or sectors prefer because of the data scales that they're dealing with. So because we deal with different size companies, we also have different costs associated with different deployments. So for example, we have a SaaS platform that you can get started for like basically starting off very cheaply, all the way to kind of an on-prem deployment where we're basically running our software on hardware that either we buy or you buy, and we deploy it on that hardware, and then you manage the hardware. And we basically service our software running on that. So like that entire distribution we support, and the prices vary based on those. But in our primary customers are B2B enterprise, and we work basically in the sweet spot of B2B enterprise contracts on about, like, I think right now they're at about 200,000, 180 to 250,000 per year contract value. And that's pretty much what we've seen with our customer segments. And that's kind of what we shoot for, especially in the enterprise contract that we try to make.
And I guess a very important question from companies that already have set up IT teams, why would they go with you rather than try to build something in-house?
Yep. So, I mean, I think the argument here is like, you can invest in trying to build this in-house, but you effectively run a number of risks. One risk is, the simplest one is that it might fail. The second one is that you need to hire, premier AI talent to build it, which is very difficult to do and very expensive to do. And it takes time, even if you do hire them. And that takes time on the order of years. So your overall investment in this, as a business will run at least $10 million, right, over these years. And you will delay and risk failure. So the simplest answer is, it's hard to do, and it's already done, and you can get it for much more cheaply than you would if you tried to build it yourself. And the analogy here is like, would you try to build your own car, even though you can go out and buy a transmission, a suspension, an engine, right? Like, very few people actually go out and build their own vehicles because it is challenging to build this system. And that's what we do. We deliver a system that uses state-of-the-art components that we either build in-house or basically manufacture off of other folks is that basically deploy them either publicly or we buy them if you need specific things we don't support out of the box. And then we basically deploy it. And that system stands up and it runs and it works and we guarantee it, provides you an SLA, et cetera. So the short answer is you can try to build it, but obviously that runs a number of risks that are business risks that if you're willing to subsume for your business interests, that's one thing, but most of the folks that we deal with don't. And a lot of the companies that tried to build it failed and became our customers.
Well, you also have a patented technology.
Sure. I mean, we're not in the business of being a patent troll. So our job, we have a patented technology. And the reason we have a patented technology is because it is something that we built when we were still students. The university patented it and licenses it to the company exclusively. So it gives us some level of defensibility of our ideas and our work, but we don't pursue other people who compete with us. We believe that our technology speaks for itself and we compete on the merits of that technology.
That's not your business, essentially. Your business is to provide value to the companies with the tools that you offer. So a lot of people have concerns for how AI is developing, the speed of which is just boggling people's minds, and actually some of them are threatened by it. AI technology seems to be developing very fast, and a lot of people are excited, but there are many who are concerned because they're threatened by it. What is your take on AI technology and where it's going and the development of it in the next couple of years?
So I'm definitely in the camp believing that AI is something that is not a human replacement. Everything that I've seen to date doesn't replace human beings. I mean, in the grand kind of holistic nature of what a human being can do in any role, what AI is very good at is very specialized tasks where they're optimized in performance in those tasks. And this is true across the board from perceptual technologies where, AI computer vision technologies are able to detect objects reliably now at high degrees of performance and are reasonably robust. Similarly, in audio and other types of modalities, you see the same thing, text, etc. Where you start seeing failures are kind of at the tail ends of the distributions where effectively there's bad representation on the training data. It's hard to generate where, where human beings excel. And that adaptability is very hard to replicate in an autonomous or a computer system. And to my knowledge, no one has actually solved that problem. Because of that, the way I view artificial intelligence is effectively an enabling technology. It is a tool that will revolutionize our world, but it will revolutionize our world not at the cost of human beings, but rather at improving their lives holistically. Now, does that mean across the board, people will not have certain things that they do replaced by a machine or an algorithm? No, they will be, but those people will be shuttled into another job or another role where there will be an opportunity to have work and provide value in the economy where machines are not good. And holistically, on average, as a society or as a group, our output will increase and our efficiency will increase. Now, whether or not there are considerations and things to consider around like AI technologies applied to different scenarios such as military and like ethical questions where these things do matter and need to be considered, because those small augmentations do impact like fundamentally, like I would say fundamental decisions on like life and death. This is not just in the military, but like in medicine or in space communications or in like even autonomous vehicles, right? Like I think everyone has seen that the promise of autonomous vehicles driving at level 5 anywhere in the world is a ways away. No matter what the marketing teams say, there are still no autonomous vehicles driving in New York City.
Right.
And the reason is again, these tail distributionary effects that lead to significant, degradation in performance. But in the condition of a vehicle, that's a big deal because if you crash, there's a likelihood either you die or someone else dies. And so the cost benefit analysis that happens in those scenarios is, are we good enough to accept an average performance characteristic on a vehicle? That's an ethical question that needs to be answered socially and societally. again, I think those are challenges we need to kind of face head on, because the world is changing in this direction and we need to accept it and kind of figure out how to do it properly.
Yes, thank you so much. What I was thinking, you said a keyword, augment, and it sounds like it's very valuable for businesses to consider, because essentially what your tool does and what we see at Alphamille when we work with companies, financial companies, to help them with machine learning tools to implement um, certain solutions that will save time and save cost and etc. It's not necessary to replace people, analysts who review these materials and review or do research on investments. It's essentially help them, correct? Help them make the decisions faster, source the information faster, and then analyze that structured data faster, so that they can actually get more done, but also um, really work in another area if they wanted to. So it's essentially maximizes the time. It's not to replace the
Right.
resources.
Yeah, so it basically gets you, I would say, like if you think about the funnel, it basically takes the top of the funnel and gets you all the way down to the bottom, where your work can be maximized against a larger base. And that base is that unstructured database that's very, or like that's very hard to work with and requires a lot of like massaging to actually start getting meaningful signal out of. And so that part is where our system works and kind of provides value, so that you can focus your efforts and energy on really extracting the meaning
Hmm.
from signal, which machines are not good at.
Right. So I'm glad to hear that humans will not be replaced.
Not yet.
Oh boy. Oh, okay. Okay. Wonderful. So in terms of your company, in terms of VidroVR, I understand that you're already expanding geographically. So you're not just a national company, is that correct?
Yes. So we are starting to do business in various parts of the world, including kind of Latin America, Middle East, and kind of like we're slowly expanding. Um, because again, I think this speaks to the fact that everyone shares the same problem sets across the board. And those problem sets are consistent in various like industries, regions of the world. And so we're able to, I guess, convey the value of being able to tap into those resources or those unstructured data sources to really drive kind of value in these various sectors. And so it resonates with people across the board.
Absolutely. Everybody wants to have an information advantage. Thank you
Awesome.
so much, Dan, for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Till next time, goodbye.